Hello and welcome. My name is Larissa, and on today's art vlog I'm going to talk about how I can give two different parts of the same composition very different and unique visual feels while still tying them together nicely within the same composition. If you've missed the previous videos about this composition, all of my art vlogs will be linked down below, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications because I still have more videos about this painting to come. In my last couple of videos, I've been working on the larger and older of the two dogs, Sebastian, but today I'm going to be working on the younger, smaller dog, Remy. While the two dogs in the painting are obviously of two different ages and sizes, they are the same breed, so I want to keep them looking very similar so that you can tell that they're the same type of dog. But at the same time, I want to give them each their own sort of individual personality and visual representation. Just like with Sebastian, I started by cutting back into the background and surrounding areas I've already painted with white. That's going to sort of establish the area that I'm working with, but also allow me to work wet on wet so that I can get some really good blending in there. For the two different dogs, I'm using very similar but slightly different color palettes. For instance, with Sebastian, I did a lot of my deepest, darkest shading in sort of a teal range, whereas with little Remy, I've decided to go with sort of a navy blue. So they're going to be very similar, but still have a slightly different feel. I started with Remy's torso, so I can layer his leg and his mane and his tail and whatnot over top of that section. I've talked in previous videos about how I'm sort of making up my light source and shading system for this painting because I'm combining so many different reference photos. So this area got a little bit complicated because there's so many different individual pieces of Remy that are all layered together. Another way I'm keeping Remy looking a little bit different from his brother is by changing the way I'm doing the texture of his fur. The older, more mature Sebastian had very long, flowing fur in several sections, so on little Remy, I decided to keep him a lot softer and sort of floofier. I wanted to keep him feeling a little bit younger, like he hasn't really grown into his more mature coat yet. As I worked my way up Remy, just like I did with his brother, I painted his collar and I painted more of it going higher than I knew I would need. That way I'll be able to paint the fur of his neck down over top of the collar. And And as I've worked my way up Remy, I am gradually increasing my level of detail, my color saturation, and my value contrast to sort of gradually guide the viewer's eye up to his face, which is really more of the focus. So by the time you get to Remy's face, there are some deep saturated colors, some rich blacks and grays, and some really cool defined fur patterns. Next, I wanted to paint his ears so that I would paint his face last to bring it forward in space visually. Some of the deepest shadows on Remy are between his ears and his face to sort of guide the eye there as the focus. Next, I moved on to his facial features, and I also wanted to make sure that I had him looking at a different angle than his brother by having the two dogs look in different directions. Again, that gave them slightly different personalities. Sebastian is sort of moodily looking off into the distance, whereas Remy is looking boldly right at the viewer. For me, eyes always have a lot of different layers, and I typically paint them in different stages, sometimes leaving them to dry in between. For instance, I like to have a lot of wet on wet, well blended areas and colors within the iris, but between the iris and the white and the outlines around the eyes and the pupil and the highlight, there are some of those areas that I want to have nice, crisp, clean edges, so I like to paint onto a dry base there. So for most of Remy, I've been trying to make him a little bit different and distinct from his brother, but by the time I got to his hat, I needed to switch gears. I want them to have two distinct personalities and feels, but I also want them to feel like they belong together in the same space. So I used the same sort of brush strokes and colors and values that I used in Sebastian's hat to paint Remy's hat. So the two hats are sort of a visual unification to keep the two dogs feeling like they belong in the same space. So hopefully that shows you how I gave the dogs two very distinct personalities and styles while still making it look like they belong together on the same canvas. I hope you found this helpful and inspiring. If you did, remember to like the video down below. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time.